Welcome once again, everyone. I'm Ngozi Akinyele. I think throughout the program today, we've clapped for teachers. I think we've clapped for Union Bank. I don't think we've clapped for ourselves, right? It's a Thursday morning and we're out here. So please, a round of applause for yourselves. Thank you. Thank you for joining us here today. Yes, the title of this panel is Financial Literacy for All. And you might wonder why we're kicking off as with financial literacy as the first panel. Now think about it, the relationship between education and financial literacy. I believe there's nobody who doesn't know their way around money. Have you noticed? Regardless of the level of education, somehow people know how much change they're supposed to collect, right? It's a universal language. But of course, there's more to financial literacy than knowing what your change is. It's all about savings, investment, and basically being included within the financial sector. Today with me is a strong lineup of people across the private and public sector who have made significant contributions towards driving financial literacy, public enlightenment on financial issues in Nigeria today. So please, another round of applause as we welcome them. So I'll just kick off with our host, Mr. Emeka Emuwa, for about yes, of course. So for about 4 years, you have worked at the helm of affairs within the Bankers Committee, within the Financial Literacy and Public Enlightenment Subcommittee, leading that effort. It's clearly a strategic effort for you. Over the years, what has kept that a strategic focus for the Bankers Committee, with you at the helm of affairs?
Thank you. Yes, I have chaired that subcommittee for a while. It is a collaborative effort. If you think about it, at the Bankers Committee, what we understand, right, and what we believe, and I believe, is that financial literacy is a key part of the puzzle, right? The puzzle being solving for financial inclusion, right? To be included, you have to understand what it is that we're trying to get you included. So literacy and enlightenment is a significant part of that puzzle. And what we've seen is that through a combination of financial literacy programs, public awareness campaigns, that the banks really have been able to communicate and really push the needle in terms of bringing more people closer to the financial system, right? Every year, for example, right, we, and when I say we, it's not just Union Bank, all the financial services industries, so the banks, central bank, all of us actively participate in global Money Week events. We're out there at schools, primary schools, secondary schools. We have content that is built. We go out there and teach. I go out there and teach, right? I've taught in primary schools, secondary schools, and it's not just me. We mobilize our entire network. So think of it, every bank sending out an army of teachers. Yes, it's only for a short period, but what we are doing in effect is every bank, including the central bank, for 1 week, essentially we send out an army of teachers to teach children all the way from primary school to secondary school about financial literacy, about money, and it's across every part of the nation, everywhere in the country, because every bank, if you aggregate the banks, were represented everywhere in the nation. So that's what we do. So we've been quite successful, I believe, at that. And what's the impact? We're seeing a reduction in the financial, shall I say, non-inclusion levels, right? I believe Dalberg has done some work, and I think we'll get some. I guess we'll get some of the real life data, but we've seen some improvement. I'm not saying that it's just us, but we've done our fair share to make sure that people understand what it is, and then together with the CBN and other communities, we brought stakeholders together. So that's really what we've been doing. One of the things that we've been doing.
Absolutely. So thank you, Mr. Mo. We have heard from a private sector perspective. So moving on to Mrs. Ahmad, in terms of the interventions of the government, of course, which you now sit within, what are some of the interventions that have been driven to actually drive financial literacy for the youth, which is a key population piece within Nigeria?
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Please permit me to start with some general comments. First of all, I'm very glad to see this panel is appropriately balanced.
Great.
With the right level of women.
A round of applause, please.
I'd like to, add to the commendation that has been given to Union Bank for this initiative. I think it is very robust. It is beyond this conversation, but there's so much on this campus that there is to experience for all the participants in the value chain, so well done. I'd like to appreciate the very eloquent and engaging Minister for State for Education for his speech and his very kind comments. There's a lot of work to be done, and we'll do it together. So we'll double for each other at some point. I'm very familiar with the work of Dalberg because you have come to present some research at the National Financial Inclusion Technical Committee. And that's what I think focused on women, and I look forward to seeing the final report. The topic today is very important, clearly. And when the MC started, they talked about how education flows into every single part of our lives. So it's our health, our financial well-being, our place in society, our mental well-being, and it's at the center of that. For us as financial regulators, we're trying to promote financial stability, we're trying to promote economic development. At the core of financial stability is inclusion. Without inclusion, we would be less stable than we would be if we had all of the citizens participating in the financial system. Now, there's a nexus between inclusion, financial education, and economic development. And I just want to start from there so that we understand the bigger picture when we talk about financial inclusion, financial literacy. You cannot have, there's enough research that has shown that without literacy, you are limited sort of in your financial inclusion goals. If you look at developed economies, you find out that for those that have the highest inclusion rates also have the highest financial literacy rates. So that's really critical. And that's why the MD was talking about all the efforts that we do at an industry level in collaboration with regulators like us and other regulators, I must say, to go out there and really drive literacy initiatives. Now, what drives, specifically to your question, what drives some of the, all the initiatives we have is the National Literacy Framework that was developed by the CBN in conjunction with several other regulators, PENCOM, NSC, all these other bodies. And what we're trying to do is to put together a targeted, because again, there's more research and study that shows that your literacy programs cannot be one fits everybody. It has to be targeted at those excluded segments, and the messaging has to be very relevant to the exact situation. So we have literacy frameworks targeted at the formal adults. These are people that are already included, but we need to expand their access to second-tier and third-tier financial products. We have those that are targeted at what we call the emerging adult bit. So they are looking at MSMEs, subsistence farmers, etc. We have programs targeted at youth. We have programs targeted at women. We have programs targeted at physically challenged individuals. And all of the content within these programs is tied to not only talking about personal financial planning, because when people talk about financial literacy, everybody looks at budgeting, how do you define your needs versus your wants, and all these things. I think it has to go beyond that to include, are you aware of the financial products out there? Do you know how to use those financial products? Are you aware of digital financial services? Do you know how to use digital channels? So it's much broader than just talking about how people can manage their wealth personally. And within that framework, which I'll talk some more about what we're doing in terms of putting financial education into the main curriculum. Because the problem we're trying to solve today, I'm talking about adults, etc. I think that we shouldn't even have that problem if the curriculum is fit for purpose. So we cannot treat financial skills and knowledge as this add-on that citizens should have. It should be something that is part of an integrated education plan, to say that for you to be educated, the same way we talk about numeracy and literacy, you need to demonstrate financial literacy. So later on, I'll talk specifically about that. And there are a lot more other initiatives, but I'd like to give the opportunity for the rest of the panel to sort of contribute. Thank you.
Thank you. So the Honorable Minister, if you think about the fact, and you made a very strong point, Mrs. Ahmad, about the strong connection between inclusion, literacy, and economic development. And I'm sure economic development is also something that is foremost on your mind. What are some of the initiatives that you feel driving financial literacy would actually implement? And then initiatives that driving financial literacy would help move along in fostering economic growth, which of course I'm sure is a priority area for you.
Well, thank you. I'm guessing, having heard from the expert, I can give you the layman's view. Okay. Truth be told, what I ask about financial literacy or financial knowledge is what happens if you do not know. The consequences of not knowing is that you're going to be a poor man. That's how it works. So let's take it from the poor man's perspective. It's based on what he does not know. People keep saying that we are now in a knowledge economy. The world has always been a knowledge economy. Everything has always been based on what you know. When you start, if gold is going to make money next year, those who know it now will make money. That's how the world works. You need to know something. Okay. All right. Now, we in government will look at it, and people remember the joke that is told about one Igbo guy who went to school and they asked him 40 plus 40 is what? He didn't answer the question. He came home and his father said, okay, Chukwu, you mean 40 naira plus 40 naira is what? He said it's 80 naira now. So you see, it's how you think that colors what you know. So if the money is the object, which is what you need to explain to people, that what this whole financial literacy is about is you should know enough things so you can make money. So people start knowing it immediately. Okay, so this morning, like I said, for national development, first things first, I'm going to come back to Madam and beg her. Bankers Committee needs to fund a data inclusion. Everybody in Nigeria above 5 years old should have a NIMC. The NIMC should upgrade you into a BVN. Simple, straightforward thing. Everybody needs to be included. The financial inclusion is not just stock. It should be everybody in the system. Once you catch everybody in the loop, and I always tell my children, the best way to understand finance is to try and go and borrow money. Try borrowing money from Mama Elakija and say, Mama, I'm trying to use the money for this. Immediately she will ask you, and when will you bring it back? When you understand that money has this process of going in and coming out, immediately it becomes clear to you what financial literacy is. At that point, you can work in Goldman Sachs. Because that's everything that any bank does is how to collect the money from poor people, give it to the rich people, and make money out of it. That's how we think. Okay, now, so what makes a bank rich is, or anybody else rich, is how you invest the money you get, How do you get it? How do you then apply it? What do you then do with it when you have gotten it? And then how do you sustain it? Those are the key things any country should be thinking about. So our problem will be all these people who say Nigeria will have 250 million people in so and so many years. I've always argued that that is not a problem. What you do with the number is now what the issue is. Let me first educate the 300. Nigeria, as we speak, has 36,000 medical doctors in the United States. All of them are trained in Nigeria. So if that's all we can do, train and send, let's do the one that we can do now. And since we are expert at this baby making business, we can teach people about it properly so they make as many. Because if you notice, I joked with the MD in the morning. I said, all of you at this level, all of you mostly have 2, 3, 4 children. Because you have DSTV, you have all these other things that you're watching, you go to play golf, all of that. The people who are making these children don't have TV. Their wife is the main point of entertainment. So it produces children. So you need to know that these children need to be educated. So as soon as you educate those ones, give them, because the biggest investment you can make in any industry for any inclusion and financial literacy is teach them. Once they are educated, they become assets. Like money in your hand. As soon as you deploy it into something that is productive, it becomes an asset. If you finish building a house today and it's not earning you money, it's not doing anything, bankers will say it's a dormant asset. That's how Nigeria's population is. So today, can we find a tool to activate that our dormant asset, the population, educate them? They become working asset. You will see that is a financial thought process. Madam, I hope I'm...
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So we've heard from, I guess, a private sector perspective as well as a public sector perspective. I think it would also be interesting to understand from an external perspective where we stand in terms of the figures based on the research that Delberg has done, where we stand in terms of financial literacy, and then what are some of the insights that you have also stumbled on in driving things forward within Nigeria regarding financial literacy, of course.
Thank you very much. I now really regret sitting in this chair, because imagine being in my position having to follow that. You are not going to get as entertaining a contribution right now, but hopefully it will be enlightening. I couldn't agree more with some of the things that have been said, but I'm also going to disagree with some. I couldn't agree more with the importance of education. That said, financial education, time and time again, we find does not correlate very strongly with financial inclusion. Many initiatives around financial education are way too much of a blanket initiative, a one-size-fits-nobody. And as our moderator already started saying, everybody finds ways to deal with money. And as far back as the seminal research that was done in the 60s, 70s, 80s by the World Bank on portfolios of the poor, we find that people of all levels and of all means of existence have really found ways to deal with their complex financial needs. And very often, the way that people of lesser financial means deal with them is sometimes even more complex than the way that people with more financial means deal with them, by virtue of the fact that there's not one single product that actually gives them what they need. So they cobble it together from a saving group, from an informal thing here, from a burial society, from something in their house. So what does that mean for the role that financial inclusion and financial education does need to play? Because there's ample examples where complete absence of an understanding combined with access to a product leads to real issues. One of the cases where we saw that was when we partnered with a whole set of different actors to set up DigiFarm in East Africa, which is an integrated solution of education, farm inputs, as well as financial services, market information to improve the livelihoods of farmers, was that many of the first-time users of the products, and particularly the youth, didn't bother to really read the terms and conditions and didn't pay back the loan, and were subsequently quite upset that they were excluded from getting a second loan, which made a lot of it crumble. So it is important that people understand the terms and conditions of the product, but where can you be targeted? And it comes back to what Madam Deputy Governor said, it can't be one size fits all. It starts with designing products that are simple to use, because if the products are simple and intuitive and meet the needs, there isn't that much education that you need to do around them. And then educating around those products at the moment that people are engaging with them and at the moment that people are using them, because that's when the knowledge is relevant and that's when the knowledge sticks. And there's lots of examples from other countries that illustrate that. So an example from Papua New Guinea, where a bank called My Bank introduced a new women's product, from branding to T's and C's to education. And they set up a whole 31-day onboarding process for their customers, which meant customers could come back again and again to be helped with engaging with the product, to bring their phone and see how it worked with the digital financial services, to be helped at the ATM up to the point that they were comfortable dealing with the product. In Tanzania, a mobile loan company called Arifu did very targeted financial literacy training around their mobile lending product, and it enhanced the repayment rates of their loans. There's ample examples that if you tailor the content to truly what people are looking for, so you talk to women not in general about savings, but you talk to them about targeted savings for their child's education. It aligns with what they're really looking to solve for, and then they go out and search for the right products. The other thing we see over and over again internationally, and this is almost rule 101 of communication and marketing, but it's funny how it's not always followed when you think about financial education. So you need to understand your audience. And a lot of the financial education is pretty blanket, focused on numbers, not focused on the quality and actually reaching. Tailor the messaging to the audience and to the intervention. Now, all of those things sound like they cost a lot of money, and they probably will. Tailoring, and when I heard about the 31-day onboarding process, I was like, I can't imagine selling that to a bank and going like, here's a product for people who have very little money, so the margins are going to be thin, and you're going to handhold them for 31 days. So the business case of this will probably not work everywhere, which is why the paramount underlying importance of general education is so important, because general education drives livelihoods, livelihoods drives income, income drives the need for financial products, and that drives a business case for financial service providers. Thankfully, there's some light at the end of the tunnel before everybody gets rich and you can serve everybody comfortably, if you still do need to tailor. And that is that there's more opportunity for partnerships than is currently being captured. There's a lot being done in silos right now, and sometimes that's just for lack of knowing what else is going on. Sometimes it's because institutions want to put their own stamp on it. Whatever the reason is, it means that all the resources need to come from one institution, and there's a lot of gaps in the patchwork that you're trying to put together. So a great example that Coca-Cola put together in Tanzania is an initiative called 5 by 20, which is very focused on women entrepreneurship, where they worked with a local CSO and Tanzania Post Bank who had a business interest in getting these women bankable, and that way they could pool both their resources as well as their respective strengths and come up with something that was a bit more. But there's no denying that to do this well takes real resources, and therefore, first and foremost, the prime priority should be educate, create livelihoods, and create financial means that drive a need for financial products.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So for all of our students, yes, please, a round of applause for all of them, because their first accounts will be Union Bank accounts. We will pass around the forms. No, there are no physical forms. Go to Edu360 Wi-Fi and then open an account. Thank you so much for that. No, thank you so much, the Honorable Minister. Thank you, Deputy Governor. Thank you, Ms. Nowen. And of course, our very own host, Emeka Emuwa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ngozi. Gentlemen of the press, a quick photo op. Can we have our panelists and, of course, the moderator here?